ahead, share my screen. So I believe you guys should be able to see my screen as well. Okay, yeah, let's start. And I mean, if and when people join, I will admit them probably. I mean, as we are at 11:36, yeah, it's good to start rather than waiting continuously. So yeah, okay, yeah. So this is Keshav. So hey guys, sorry, can you guys please mute? Hello. Hey guys, can you please mute yourself? A lot of noise. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So to give some background of myself, so I'm working as a technical manager as a full-time employee for some company here. And I mean, predominantly my work experience is on Microsoft technologies like .NET, SQL Server, SQL BI, Azure, and recently with the Power Platform. And along with this, I'm good at Kubernetes, where I started working on these Dockers and Kubernetes. And also I did, I mean, along with these technologies, I also work on the UI technologies like AngularJS, Knockout.js, and React.JS, and also started working on Flutter as well. So this is about my background, and along with this, I mean, I do work as a freelance consultant and work as I mean, a mentor, and also I'm a speaker at many sessions. Sorry. And also, I work as a, I mean, speaker in the organization and even the outside the organization. So along with this, yeah, it's my first session in the meetup. So I mean, I just believe in learning the technology is something, and when we share the technology, it improves. I mean, it gives the opportunity to share the knowledge with a group, and it helps us to improve and helps us to make the group improve. So that's what I believe in. So I just started, and this is my first session. So yeah, so today's session is I'm going to cover the React.js, what is React.js, and what are the components. Basically, I mean, what is component in React.js, how we can develop a React.js component, and when it comes to React.js components, we have something like functional components and class components. And we need to start the React.js. We need to have, I mean, the development environment and the basics like, I mean, props and state. So among with all these, the component lifecycle, which is more important to understand where we have to keep what kind of code. Suppose say when we are trying to get some data by, I mean, calling some services kind of stuff. So where we need to have that kind of code exactly, and what are the precautions that we need to take while doing that event handling, because I mean, we have many types of event binding techniques. So which is the better, and what kind of event binding techniques we have to take and why? So this is what I'm going to cover in this session. And as a follow-up session, I have another session scheduled on 26th. And in that session, I'm going to I'm going to cover the advanced topics and advanced topics of the React components, and along with those, I will take up an example like a master detail scenario, and would implement that master detail scenario by implementing the components, and we would improve that component and by breaking that component into different individual components uh, to improve the best performance, and also implementing the best practices for implementing those React components. Yeah, that's it. So with that, yeah. So React.JS. So what is React.JS and why do we need this and who developed this? So basically React.JS is a library that is developed by Facebook. So it started around 2016, and this React.js is, hey guys, if you don't mind, can you please mute yourself so that, uh, sorry, please keep mute yourself so that we don't have that disturbance. Yeah. So yeah, React.js is being developed and maintained by the Facebook, and comparatively Angular and other technologies, it is the most recent developed technology, but this is the most used technologies of all the UI technologies because of the flexibility of using it, because of the performance that it gives, because of the easy of implementation and other features as well. So it is the most powerful. That's why it's most popular technology within very quick time. So that's why so many companies are started using it, and its performance is the best among all the UI technologies. So that is one of the most reasons when we are developing any, mobile apps basically. And basically, this is a library and it's not a framework. So what is meant by a library, or what is the difference between a library and framework? A framework is something which is out of, which gives some kind of a template where it gives some kind of navigation paths and other stuff related to, invoking that, services and stuff. But when it comes to a library, it's a Java, it's a library where it can be used to develop the UIs. And when you want to, consume the services or integrate the services or implement routing, you have to implement your own, or you can implement, you can use some other frameworks. So, and as I mentioned, it has many advantages. It is supported by Facebook, and it is the fastest growing technology, and it is being used by many other projects apart from Facebook as well. And not only developed by Facebook, and the Facebook itself is using the React.js for Facebook app or Facebook application. And we have huge support of blogs or articles. Through online we can get any kind of help easily. But nowadays the problem is we have lots of content, and most of the content available in the internet is not at all complete or not at all accurate. So we have to be cognizant of ourselves in order to select what we need to, what kind of, blog or something, the content that we need to select to learn more. And when it comes to the future features of the React.js, yeah, mostly the React.js is being used to develop the web applications or mobile apps. And it is being, it has unit test support, which is basically, gives a lot of help while doing the development. And uh, unit testing is something which helps the developers to make the development faster, and also it helps them not to break the other things, not to break the existing functionality basically. And it also helps to it also helps that CI/CD pipeline easier. I mean CI/CD easier. Uh, and yeah, as I mentioned, it's a library and it can be used to develop UI when it comes to web applications and mobile apps. So you guys can stop me when you guys have any questions whenever. It helps you to, I mean, follow whatever we have been discussing rather than waiting till the end where you might not clear, and that probably, I mean, may, create some kind of gap between what I have been discussing, what you understand. So in order to learn React.JS, we need some kind of basic technologies. So those are like, basic things like HTML, and basic CSS and JavaScript basics. And especially when it comes to JavaScript basics, we need to understand that this where we use this and what is the context while we are using this keyword, especially in the JavaScript. So that is one of the basic important concept to we have to understand, and sometimes it uh, confuses basically. And along with that, if you understand those ES6 basics, that would be easier for you to learn React easily. And if you, if you're already aware of something like Knockout.js or Angular.js, yeah, you are good and you should be able to learn React.js very fast. So when it comes to React.js, it's a component-based architecture. So what is meant by component-based architecture and why do we need this? So let's take a look into some example and then we discuss about what is component-based architecture. So suppose say I take some sample website where the typical website format would be like this. A typical website might be having some kind of header where it is having some kind of company header, company logo, and if it is a website or portal kind of stuff, we are maintaining some logged in user information. And maybe the updated share information. And when it comes to footer, we are having some kind of information related to the footer, and left side menu where we are maintaining all the navigation links. And maybe some websites might be having some kind of right navigation links where we navigate to the relative web pages, and we might be having some news. Sometimes we might be maintaining some kind of summaries at the right end if it is a master detail data that we are displaying in the main content. So when it comes to main content, probably we are maintaining all the basic information related to that business. So this how generally we have a website. So when it comes to, the technologies like either JSP or ASP or ASP.NET. So how it happens is we do build all the HTML data at the backend, might be in the some, service or backend. Typically a backend where that web server would build that um, the HTML and render all that HTML to the UI, where the HTML sometimes if you are displaying some kind of 1,000 records, suppose say, so the the size of the data that is being transferred from the web server to the browser is very high, where it obviously gives some performance issues. So to solve these kind of issues, the newer frameworks or newer libraries came into the picture. where this AngularJS or Knockout.js or React.js, where we do call some web server or some backend services to get the data only, where the data size might be, I mean, when it comes to, I mean, the data that is being transferred compared to the HTML versus the only plain data as part of the JSON or XML. So it is predominantly very, I mean, the size is very less, and hence you would get the best performance from the web server, and you are I mean building that entire UI or rendering that entire UI in the browser itself. Even when it comes to mobile applications, you are rendering that entire in the, I mean, mobile app there itself. So that gives the best performance. And at the same time, we have to be a bit careful while rendering those UIs. So otherwise, I mean, the UI will become very slow. That gives the negative impact on the application and also, I mean, on the business as well. So yeah, probably, I mean, we are having, I mean, so many ways for doing the development of the React.js applications. So we might be having some kind of online playgrounds like CodePen, Code Sandbox, Glitch, and Sandblaze. These are the things. So we can use any one of them for, I mean, doing some kind of hands-on, or otherwise you can use some of the I mean tools like I mean I generally use Microsoft code tool, I mean for developing it, for developing I mean some kind of React.js applications, and even for the others as well. And also you can use I mean when it comes to developing either a website, or when it comes to developing a, I mean, app, I mean, you can simply use those JavaScript files like React JS or React DOM.js. And these are the two important and required JavaScript files. Those are required to develop websites in JavaScript or apps in JavaScript. And there is one Babel.js, which is basically compile that XAML, I mean JSX into JS, I mean JavaScript. So we will look into that thing, but this is an optional. Even we can develop the React.js applications without even Babel.js, but that is very tedious. So that's why we have to use, I mean, Babel.js. That helps the developer life easy, and the code is more readable. So to create the React.js web application or app, we need Node.js, and we can install the Node.js. And once we install that Node.js, we can install that React.js package, create React.js React app package. I mean, to create that app, or even you can, even without using that one, you can use the npx command. Basically that is a npm package runner. So basically if you I mean take that, the point 3 contains 2 steps, and point 4 contains 1 step, which basically take that package, and it creates that app for React. So generally I do follow that npx command, which is easier to remember and do that. So any questions? Okay, yeah, let's start with something, and probably I will start with, I mean, I will just start with a code sandbox, and then we will go and start with Visual Studio Code. So we can, I mean, in the basically, I mean, I shared all the links in the PPT. So, and this PPT and also the source code is being shared with you. So no need to worry. But if you guys are interested to do some hands-on, you can follow me and do it parallelly. Or otherwise, if you, I would generally recommend to understand the concept rather than doing it. So once you understand it, and probably you can spend some time on, I mean, as I shared the source code, you can take the source code, and if you understand that concept, then it would be easier to replicate anything. So this is the basic template that I would get when I mean, whenever we go to this code sandbox, I mean, React.js development environment. So if you take a look into this, we have basically app.js that is basically, I mean, a starting point for any JavaScript application. I mean, for any React.js app, and this public, so this where we are having that index.html. So this is the starting point where we are having a root, and from there we are invoking the entire, we are loading all the JavaScript files, and once, as soon as we load that, it would, I mean, take that root, and from there you can see, yeah, it is taking that root of the reference of that root div element, and from there it starts rendering that. For this, your browser has to be enabled with the JavaScript, otherwise you would get, I mean, it won't work. Yeah, so once we have this app.js, so we will, I mean, just start with this, and we will just start create one hello world application. Yeah, that's basically I mean, for any guy who learn any new language, so that's the basic first program that anyone does. So let's start with that. So in order to create a React.js component, I mean, anything is a component in React.js, and we can develop two types of components: functional component and a class component. So we will look into those two. First, we will just, I mean, start with a functional component. So to start any component, we have to import React class from React library. So once we have it, we can develop a function hello world, and once we have this, we have to export it hello world, and this function has to return something, otherwise we don't need anything. Whenever there is some functionality, then only we know that we need that one. So what our objective is here, we just render a hello world text. That's it. Developing a React.js component, either functional component or class component, very easy. And when it comes to these semicolons, these are all optional. If you want, if you are interested, or probably, I mean, if you get used to, I mean, semicolons, probably those guys who are using either Java or .NET, either C or C Sharp, those guys are might be get used to these commas. But these are all optional. And once we develop this, it's pretty much simple. We just need to use that custom tag here. So as soon as I mean, as while I'm typing, so it also adds that import statement for that. And if you remember, I mean, if you observe it, as soon as I kept this hello world tag with all the syntaxes, proper syntaxes, it displays the result, the hello world. So that's it. So it is pretty much simple to, I mean, start with, but we have to, yeah, but we have to, I mean, this is simple, nothing. This is just a static code, so it's very easier to do, but we have to Yeah, but when it comes to the complex components, yeah, we do have to, I mean, know what we are doing, how we are doing. So this is how we do, I mean, develop a React component. So when it comes to React, we are just importing a React library and then develop a function and then export it and then import it and use it somewhere. That's it. And if you observe here, we have to note down few things. React component classes or functions start with capital letter, that is Pascal casing. And when it comes to the tags, we are going to use this function name as a tag, custom tag in the HTML code. And when it comes to the normal, I mean HTML tags, those are is in small, those starts with small letters. So this is one thing that we have to keep in note. If you make any mistakes, suppose say if I use capital H here, here, we'll get that compilation error. Why? Because I mean that kind of runtime error, because the React doesn't know the H1. So that is, it is looking for a custom component with name H1. So where, I mean, we don't have it. So because of that reason, we are getting this, I mean, runtime error. So keep note of that one. So, mm,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, sure.
Did you just say that we have to the function name should start with capital letter?
Yeah.
Why is that?
That's the difference. Why? Because when it comes to, I mean, when it comes to React, it has to differentiate between the default or out of box tags that is provided by the HTML by default, like H1, H2, or input or button. And when it comes to the custom components, custom tags that we are building here. So that's why that is the naming convention that React.js team is using. And yeah, even I mean, I show you, right? Even when I try to use a capital one, so how React would try to interpret it is, it is looking for a component, custom component with the name capital H1, and obviously it is not developed in this, and because of that reason we are getting that error. But if you want to maintain a component with capital H1, you can develop it, and in that case it works for you. But it is going to be a custom component, I mean custom component or custom tag for in your application. Okay, am I clear?
Yeah, I mean the H1, I think it makes sense because this is the it this is from the HTML tag, right? But the Hello World, um,
uh,
so are we saying that it may not work if we write like just that Hello World?
I mean, I think, I mean, it won't work.
Okay.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Mhm. Okay. I believe, yeah, it seems like, I mean, it will accept, but when it comes to a conflict like the existing tags in the HTML and the custom tags, seems like it is having issues, and probably, I mean, it seems like it will work. I don't know. Yeah, that's it. I believe, yeah, as far as I know, it won't work. So that is the basic, I mean, naming convention that, or I mean, that is used by AngularJS, I mean React.JS team to differentiate between the out-of-box tags and the custom tags. Okay.
Maybe that doesn't work because the number line three, line code line three, import Hello World. Maybe it has to be um, the same naming convention as well when you change it with small letter.
Right, that one. I mean, I did not try this one, frankly. I mean, as far as I saw, they mentioned that we have to go with this. Mm, yeah, right. I mean, as far as I mean, I know as far as I mean, read the documentation of React.js, though they are suggesting to use the capital rather than, I mean, for all the custom tags. Yeah, but the thing,
Okay, that's fine. I just want to
yeah,
yeah.
okay. I mean, yeah. I can see your point. So it seems like we can have that naming convention like capitals, smalls here, but when it comes to that render thing, so here we have to have that capital, otherwise it won't work. So the thing here is when we use some, I mean, different name than what we have here, it's a kind of alias name that we are creating here. So because of that reason, it is working. I mean, but when I try to make it as small, it won't work. But though in your individual component, if you have I mean, the component name starts with small, that is fine. But here, while doing it, we are giving some different name, and I mean, it might not be the hello world, some test as well. So, but when it comes to this test, yeah, it's a kind of alias name that we are giving to that hello world component, and we have to use this test here while rendering. Yeah, so that's it. And as I mentioned, I have been used, I mean, I will generally use Microsoft Visual Studio Code for, I mean, for my development. So for this, as I suggested, we can use this command or this command to create that app. Let me start with some, mm, 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 let me start. I mean, creating it, and then we will look into that. So as soon as we come here, we can go to terminal, and from there, um, yep, we can mpx create app, react session one, and click enter. Yeah, and probably it takes some time for creating that entire app. And yeah, we will come back to this, and meanwhile we will look into the um, I mean, next step. So I have already created, as I mentioned, and also I developed all the samples or rituals for this session. So we will do some, and we will also, I mean, parallelly. So as I suggested, Right. So the first application that we have seen here, so component, functional based component, and we can also have a look into that class based component as well. For that, I will use my Visual Studio. Yeah, it is similar, but there are few differences. Instead of function, it starts with, I mean, import React from React, sorry, and then we have to define a class with hello world class, and that should be don't mind with the syntaxes. I'm typing, so it takes time. That's why I developed initially. And when it comes to this, it has to be inherited from the component class, and it should have at least the render method, and it should return some JSX data load from class component. And similarly, we have to export it. Export default world class. And once it is done, then we have to import it here, hello world class, and then we have to use it. And when we look into the data, hello world from class, I mean, we can change whenever we make any changes. Those should be reflected here. Sorry, I changed in different one. Hello world class. Yes. Once I save it, hello world class. Yes. Then we can take a look. Mm, mm, mm. Sorry, this is the mistake here. So I exported the wrong one. So because of that reason, it did not reflect. So yeah, as soon as I make any changes here, so the React.JS framework internally monitoring all the file changes, and as soon as the file there is some changes in the file, it would re-render. So this is the I mean class component, the same component. So the only difference is we have to define a class here, and we have to use the render method to render something. But when it comes to the class components, I strongly feel that the class components are pretty much easier and manageable when we have the complex business functionality. Why? Because the business logic can be implemented into the respective methods where it gives you the opportunity to maintain, and also it also gives you the maintain that state, and the I mean segregation of the code, and also the maintainability. So I mean from personal perspective, I do prefer the class components over functional components. But whenever you have a simple functionality, I mean it would be easier to implement the functional components easier. So yeah.
You said you prefer the class components over the functional components. I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Is there any specific reason? I mean, are there specific scenarios that you prefer the class components over the functional components?
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to the class components, probably we will look into that life cycle of the class components maybe in the coming, maybe in the next coming half an hour. So when it comes to class component, it has its own life cycle. Basically, the initialization part, rendering part, and there is some kind of life cycle methods where you can implement. Suppose say, if you want to interact with your service and get the data, so you have to implement it in a specific life cycle method. So where it helps you to maintain your code into a specific areas, that gives the opportunity. And also the other thing is, basically I came from a background where spend a lot of time on implementing these classes basically. So that also probably the one maybe the one strong point for me, and that makes my life easier to maintain that code in the classes. And also when it comes to maintaining the internal state and all other stuff, it would be easier to look into the class components code than functional component code. It's my personal feeling basically. But probably, those guys who are purely a JavaScript background, probably they may prefer, functional components. Okay, this how it is. So yeah, if we just have a look into the one. So when it comes to the class components or functional component, when it comes to class components, it should be inherited from a component class, and it has its own life cycle, and where the binding and all other stuff would happen. So binding of the events and all other stuff. But this, as far as the documentation, when you have a simple component where it has some simple functionality, so better to go with the functional component. But when you have a complex logic, so better to go with the class component. So that's what it is suggested. And the JSX, yeah, this is most important part as part of any React.js application. So when it comes to JSX, even we have already implemented some JSX. If we look at here in the hello world class, we developed a simple HTML. This is JSX, and probably we can have any number of tags here, and those might not be may not be these HTML tags. Those can be even custom tags as well, custom React.js tags as well. You can have all these things here. So it's a simple XML, but a JavaScript XML. Basically it is called JavaScript XML. It should have any HTML or CSS or custom tags or attributes, or even children as well. Children in terms of text bar, body within the tags. So basically this JSX transpiles into the JavaScript. So sometime back I mentioned one optional one here, that Babel compiler. So this Babel compiler is being used there to compile that JSX into JavaScript, where the developer's life, I feel personally feel it would be pretty much easier to develop the JSX rather than develop something like a JavaScript to render the same code. But suppose say, we just let's spend a couple of minutes here and try to convert this into into plain JavaScript, which would render the same, I mean, null and then the tag. So go with this like this. So probably we should have the same response here. Just to ensure, I just do something. Yeah. But if you have this div tag here, again you have to create one more element here, like React dot create element. So the first one is div, and the second one is where I'm just keeping it as a null for now, but we can have the attribute values there. So if we have like this, then only it renders. Suppose say if I don't want, if we try something like this, h1 tag here, h1 testing some h1. I'm supposed to see the, header tag, but instead of the h1 is being rendered as a text. So here this entire third attribute is being treated as some normal content. So because of that reason, we have to create another element for h1, and then only it is being rendered. So because of that reason, rendering or creating the JavaScript code, JavaScript for rendering the UI is bit difficult, but using that JSX is very easier to develop complex React components. So that's why we go with JSX. So here that Babel compiler is an important one, and which is basically transpiles that JSX into JavaScript. And when it comes to, probably we are going to see these things as well, like event binding. So when it comes to JavaScript, we are using all the small case, but when it comes to, we are using this casing in JSX. So we will look into those things in the coming topics. So this how it is. So now let us take one more scenario. So generally we might not be having this kind of, hello world. So no way useful like this. It won't be useful. So assume that instead of hello world, probably I want to display something like hello user. So yeah, it seems like it is taking, longer time. So instead of, doing typing everything, I just want to use my existing already implemented code. I will go through it and walk through that code, and whenever you guys have any questions, please drop me there, and I will clarify if you have any questions. So what I developed is something like a component which takes the username from the HTML from where I'm calling it, and I want to display the username as part of the app. This is just simple thing. So I'm just passing name, and I just want to display that name as to the user. So I will show you by, those two scenarios, like using functional components and class components as well. There is slight difference using some, how to passing is the same, but when it comes to retrieving those values with, there is slight difference. So that's why I just want to take those two types of scenarios using functional and using class components. So it is pretty much simple. So import that React. So ideally, this React is not being used anywhere here, but while transpiling that JSX, we need this one. So that's why we are importing. So this is just function and function name. Here we are passing one parameter called props. So when it comes to props and whatever you pass as part of the custom tag here, it could be attributes or even some text or whatever it is. So that is being transfer. I mean, you can retrieve all those values, attribute values or text values using the props. And I'm just taking that name from the props and just displaying and exporting that and using it. So let's take a look into that output. This is what it is. So we can see Alex, Max, or Dali, whatever is there. Suppose say, I mean, if I make some changes here, those would be reflected. So these names are being rated, and you can pass any number of attributes. Those might be simple properties or might be even JavaScript objects from here to the component. So this is one way where we are passing the data from the calling component to the individual component. So this is one of the ways. Probably these are much more useful while doing some kind of complex components, while implementing master detail scenarios or CRUD operations or anything. And yes, this props. So this is an attribute that we can use. And when it comes to props, it's a read-only attribute, and you should not change it. The props dot name should not be changed here, because you can say it's a read-only property name, or because it is being passed from the component, calling component to the component, and it should not be changed. Whenever you have to make a change to this one, probably you have to take that attribute value into some variable, and then you can change it. So that's the only way you can do that one. You can see that, I mean, basically when it comes to class components, as part of that lifecycle methods, while creating that state, you can transfer the data from the props to state. So there you can modify that state there. So this is how it is when it comes to functional components. We take a look into the same, the class component as well. So this is the same thing. We just import React and the component, because component, the individual class component is being extended, I mean, imported from the class components. And here the only difference is that this dot props we have to use. And if we use it, it is similar. I mean, we should get the same response here as well. Let me comment out this one to keep it clean. So yeah, this is what we have here. We're taking that from the class component and displaying there. And yes, but here we are using this dot props. So whenever we are accessing those attributes that are being passed from the calling component, we have to use this dot props dot name. Suppose say if I remove this, you get the error saying like compile time error, saying like it doesn't understand what is this. So that's where this is very critical, I mean, point. Basically that this is providing the context in terms of JavaScript. I mean, if you understand that that's this one, I mean, the keyword this, it is providing that entire context. So here this is having that class component, I mean class context here, and props is defined as part of this component, and because of that reason it is available when we use this dot props. If you are using individually, it won't be available for you. And also yeah, and also we, yeah, the thing is, and also we yes, I just want to demonstrate one more point here. So I'm passing some data as part of the tag, and I want to display it here as well. And also I want to demonstrate one more point here. We will see. And some div, and as part of this div, I would like to this dot props dot children. So you can access any child attribute, I mean child tags are using children attribute here. But when you use it, you have to return all those things. Yeah, as part of still we should get error. Yeah, that's true. So the another point that we have here is whenever we, I mean, when it comes to the individual components, we can return only one tag, one high level tag. And you can have any number of child tags, but when it comes to high level, you should be having only one tag and the rest of the things should be part of it. So that's why I wrapped all the individual tags in div tag. So now we should be able to get the output. So here the tag is being rendered as rendered. And also if you, I mean, it should not be a simple this one, or probably if you want to render some kind of button tag. So as soon as you see it, oh, sorry, spelling mistake. Right, you should be able to see a button here. So you can render anything, but that should be passed as part of the child tag here. But the difference while accessing them, you should use this dot props dot children. So that's the one thing. And the other thing is the entire rendered JSX should be in one tag. It could be anything, either could be div or something else, whatever it is, but it should be a div tag. I mean, it should be in one tag. So that's one difference between, I mean, props using in, yeah, props using in either in a functional component or a class component, basically. So pass, I mean, to pass the values from calling component to the, I mean, component, we use the props. But when it comes to functional components, we have to use this, we have to pass that parameter props to the function. But when it comes to the class component, it should be available out of box from component class, but you have to use the this dot props, otherwise it won't be available. Okay, yeah. The next thing is the state. So this is most, I mean, important concept, and maintaining the state and changing that state and rendering that state to the UI. So these are the three things that are part of this state. So this is one thing where we have to be, I mean, we should keep some focus on it. So meanwhile, any questions you guys have? And also it's almost close to an hour. So we can have some kind of a 10-minute break. And I mean, I will be available. And if you guys have any questions, I'm here to, I mean, answer you. So let's have some 10 minutes break and let's meet again at 10:45, I mean 12:45 EST. Okay. Yeah, welcome back, guys. And yeah, I mean, when I started this command, previously there is some naming convention issue. So the name is started with capital letters, and because of that reason, the project was not created. Now, with small letters like React hyphen meetup hyphen session, it's getting created. So it takes some time generally. So once it is done, then we have to use npm start. Then your project is started, and you should be able to, develop and run that application. Yeah, once it is created, then we will do that one as. So yeah, when it comes to state, yes, let's take one example. Um, yeah. So I will go through that. Then one that like event binding and life cycle methods as a next topic. Well, meanwhile, we can take a look into this. So we have to, we can use that state that is available from component, this dot state, and that should be initialized as part of the constructor only. And later parts, it can be changed, but the thing is, it cannot be initialized again. And while doing that, constructor, we have to pass the props property. And another thing is, we have to call the base class constructor by using super. So these are the differences, and just remember them, and we will take a look into that component lifecycle later. As the next topic. And yeah, this is another component, welcome class. It's just a simple class. And I have state object, and in that I have a message, and I'm just displaying that message here. Let us comment out this part, and then comment out this guys, and comment this. Yes. So I should be able to say this welcome guest. So probably, we can take a simple scenario like generally we have websites where we have to log in, and before login, probably some sites showing like welcome guest. And once you log in, it will, after successful login, it will display welcome, the respective username, logged in username. So kind of stuff. So where we are maintaining, interacting with a service and authenticate, doing that authentication. Once the authentication is done, we will get that username and maintaining it in somewhere and displaying that. So this is similar thing. So here, maybe instead of, I mean, I just added it as a message. Instead of message, you can mention it as a name, as well, username as well, something like that. I'm displaying it. So while displaying the data from state, it is the similar thing. We are setting it as individual name parameter, and while accessing the this dot state dot that respective parameter name. So this is simple thing, and I am able to display it. So what I would like to do is, I would like to display a button like login, and once user logs in, I would like to change the message as thanks for clicking. Instead of this, I would like to display as welcome. For now, I'm just hard coding as username as Dali, but this is what I will. And when it comes to that event binding, I'm just using on-click event. And when an on-click is event, I'm just binding this event handler, login handler to this click event. Just remember it, and we will look at different ways to bind, to do that event handle, event binding. Right? So I'm able to display this, and once I click it, it did not change. Let us take a look into this. Just refresh it. It's clean. I just cleaned everything. I just click login. So, but if you look at the value, actually when I change the value like this dot state dot message with something, I'm assigning it to something else. But the value is being changed when I'm displaying it in the console, but it is not being reflected in the UI. That's the difference. Just, I mean, that is the point here. So that's why to make reflect anything, any changes happen to the state, and when we want those changes reflected in the UI, we have to use this dot state and make those changes in the respective, make those changes in that I mean that respective, I mean, attributes. This is what, and let me refresh and let me clean it, and I just go click login, and I'm able to see that message. Okay, thanks for clicking. Probably I have to change it. Okay, so guest, clean, login, welcome Dali. And but the other thing that I'm able to see is, though the value is changed, the name is not changed here in the console. It is displaying that initial value only. So that means the line of the code in the 19 is being executed even before executing this statement. So the point here is, the set state method is an asynchronous method, and that is being called asynchronously. So because of that reason, we should, I mean, we were able, because of that reason, the line 19 is getting executed, though it is being triggered at line 13 as part of the sequential execution. And line 19 is getting executed before this set state, because it is a synchronous method and it is being, it is executed after executing this one. So how do we know? Or somehow, if we have something and we wanted to display after executing, I mean, after changing that state, probably we have to add a callback here. Console.log this dot state dot message. Probably puts, we have to see that we have to differentiate it. So that's why I just added that callback. So I just clean it. I just change it. Welcome to Dali. Yeah, now you can see. So the thing is, line number 19 is executed first, and then it is being executed. The set state is being executed because it is an asynchronous method, and the value is being displayed. So if you want to see the, I mean, if you want to look at that value that is being modified as part of this set state, we have to use the callback, I mean, method to look into those things. Otherwise, we would see the, I mean, initial value. So that is the difference. So these are the two differences. And apart from this, I would like to demonstrate one more thing as well. Related to this state, set state. Okay, close this. Let me go back to this app and comment out. So let me go through the code first and then I will explain you this. So, okay, this is a simple counter class. What I am doing is I am setting some count variable to 0, initialize it with a 0, and I'm just incrementing that counter by 1. So we have say, I mean, we have already seeing like, okay, the counter can be executed, I mean, can be incremented, and if we increment it, won't get reflected. So what I do here is this dot set state, where I do set count plus 1. Count is not defined. Dot state dot count. So yep. So I can see it is being incremented after clicking that button. So this is fine. But what I would like to do is, it is binded to some other method. So I would like to bind it to increment. So let us see. It just bind it to that increment method and it is big. But the thing is, I just want to increment the number by 5 times. I mean, it can be done by just, I mean, the count plus 5, but I just want to demonstrate one feature of this one. So because of that reason only, I'm just calling the same method 5 times rather than using it as count plus 5. Okay. So what it should be done is when I click it, it should be incremented by 5. I just want to see the console as well. I'm just logging some information there. We just want to monitor it. But if you look at it, it is sorry, I have to make change as well. I did not change the button click handler. So what I'm doing is I just binded the click method to this click, increment method, button click handler, and invoking that increment method 5 times. So that means what I am expecting is, so the count should be 5 after clicking this button. So, but the actually, let me run it again. But actually how it happened is, it is called 5 times, but it is only incremented 1 time. Why? So basically the set state method would be, execute all the values as a batch. So because of that reason, every time it passes that 0 value, and 0 is being incremented by 1, and because of that reason the value is incremented as 1. So instead of that, if I want to see the value as 5, we have to pass that previous value of the previous state and pass that to this set state method, so that the code works as we expected. Okay, let me go back to this. Just clearing it. Just click once. So now I should be able to see the value is being incremented as 5 times. Incremented to 5 because I'm just passing the previous value. So that means when it comes to, when it is called first time, it is incremented by 1, and the 1 is passed to the next call like that. The value is being incremented by 1 5 times, and it became 5. So this is one thing, because otherwise the set is being called as a batch statement in order to React improves the performance. Why? Because when a value is changed, the UI is going to be re-rendered. So because of that reason, the set state is going to be a batch in a particular event, and all the methods, all the calls are going to be done at once. Okay. So, and the, okay, we have these two, like we have the props and we have the state. So what are the differences between these two? So when it comes to props, these are immutable, and when it comes to state, I mean, this we can make the necessary changes or read and writes to the state. Props are only being used to pass the values from the calling component to the actual component. When it comes to functional components, props can be used, I mean, props can be passed as a parameter, but when it comes to state, I mean, in the class components, props can be used this dot props, and the state is can be used this dot state in the class component. And we have to use that set state in order to reflect the changes that are done to the state of the component. So when you use that set state, only the changes are being reflected in the UI. Otherwise, the changes will be done reflected in the state, but those won't be reflected in the UI. And set state is an asynchronous method. Please do remember this. And whenever we have to make some changes, suppose say um, I want to execute something, I want to insert or update something in the database, and I do service call, and in that service call we have to use, after that service call, for this set state method, we have to have that uh, callback method to reflect that one, to see the updated changes. Otherwise, we will see the initial changes only. And we can use that previous state in order to keep the changes reflected as accurate as possible or as expected as possible when we have multiple calls. So the next thing is event handling. So this is very important one, and when it comes to event handling, we have 4 ways for binding an event handler to a particular event. And among all these, the first method, we can use that binding event handler dot bind and passing this, and we can use this dot that event handler. This is what I showed to you so far. And instead of that, we can use some other methods as well, and this dot we can create a property or attribute, and we can use this in the constructor. And this is the preferred way, as per the React documentation, and also because of the bind is happening only once as part of the constructor. Otherwise, the bind, if you do it as part of this HTML or as part of that render, as render is going to be re-rendered whenever there is a state change, it is going to be a repeated binding. So that's an unnecessary thing. And if you have multiple bindings, then it is going to create performance issues in your application. Or otherwise, you can go for arrow function as well. So that is also a possible thing. So let's look into those. Okay, this is the first way. We have a React class extended from the component, and I have one click handler. I'm just using it here, and on bind, I'm just binding this with this dot click handler. run this. Okay, and as soon as I'm done, I'm just logging something like button click. I'm just clicking it, so I can see the button click message here. So that's pretty much simple, but we will see the differences with the other issues. So once it is done, then binding. This is bit, I mean, the next step, but this is what I want to discuss and spend some time on it. Why? Because we have to, I mean, whenever it comes to event binding, I mean, it's pretty much common thing in any web application, and we have to have this event binding for any web application. So we have to bind those events. So the thing is, okay, this is pretty much the way. I mean, I can have some kind of event handler, I mean, as an arrow function, and I can bind it. So let me see. Let me run it. Okay, I'm displaying. Okay, I just let me walk through the code. So I'm having some. I'm maintaining some message. I mean, attribute with welcome message, and as soon as I did any change to this, I'm just changing that to thank you. So I'm just clicking it, I'm just changing it, and in the event handler, I'm just displaying uh, that this I mean value, nothing more than that. Okay, let me comment on this, and I will show you this one. So this is the pretty much the way, first way. But this works as expected, but the drawback with this is we are binding this event handler in the on click as part of this render method. Render method is something which is being rendered, re-rendered many times as soon as the state is changed. This is binding, the binding is happening here. But in this, I mean, this is simpler testing our hands-on component. Because of this reason, we don't have much. But if you have a complex web application, there you might be having many bindings, many events, many bindings, and even one element might be having different kinds of bindings. So by repeatedly doing that binding, it may create performance issues. Maybe, I mean, I would like to demonstrate that one as well, maybe in the, I mean, next session. I mean, while, I mean, demoing one sample application. So this will, I mean, works as expected, no issues at all. And also the other one is, might be, the second way is similar to this. It also works as expected, but it might be having the issues with this. So because of that reason, you have to use this. Otherwise, if you do in this way, it won't understand, or it won't know where the this is. But this is also not a preferred one. The preferred one here is we can define a, I mean, property here and bind this one as part of this constructor. So as this constructor, I mean, is being called while loading, and this will happen only once. And if you re-render the code n number of times, it won't need to bind. Just we are adding a reference to that. We are adding that reference of that property to on. So this is the preferred way, and I mean, the documentation of the React is asking us to follow this. But there is one more. Hello.
Yeah. So in your example, I see there is two button click handler. I'm not sure which one is actually triggered. So there is button click handler equal to function arrow.
This
And
one.
then in the there are two methods like button click handler. You see in the line number 14 and line number 19.
Okay, 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 okay.
So
Sorry.
so which I see the result over there. I don't understand why both there is no compiler or anything for that.
Sure, sure. I will come back in that case. Yeah. Let me come back and explain to you again quickly. So this is the first one. Okay. Button event handler that bind, and let me also comment out this one. Sorry, I mean I missed out this two. I mean event handlers. So basically, yeah, this is the one, and when I'm just binding this method and passing this, I mean keyword to establish that context. Why? Because the event handler doesn't have that context, this context, and I mean in this scenario I'm using I mean the state. So that's why it doesn't know that state. So because of that reason, I'm passing that this. Okay. So when it comes to here, yep, it works. And also I mean, if we look at that console, yeah, probably we can see that this, all that context. So the value of, I mean, once it is changed. So this is the one way, the first way, and the second way. Let me comment out this one. Let us see. So what I'm doing here is I'm just I mean calling that method. I believe in this scenario I have to use this one, otherwise it will. Oh, the button this, sorry. Yeah. So in this scenario, I'm just using this. So here I mean button click handle, it is just an arrow function. So I'm just passing it as a reference and binding it to the on click event. So that's what it is happened. But this is also not a preferred one. Why? Because we are I mean the arrow function is kind of anonymous function, and that is being I mean, recreated every time. So because of that reason, the binding would happen every time the rerun, I mean, the rendering happens. So because of that reason, we do prefer this third one basically. And most of the official React documentation, if you look at, you would see that one only. The binding would happen in the constructor itself. So where we are creating a property and where we are binding this method to that property, and it is being I mean used for event binding. So this because the reason is it is happening only once and it can be reused, and this avoids that rebinding whenever the rendering happen, I mean would happen because of that state change. So that is the one. And I mean somehow if we guys wanted to have this one as well, I believe you can go with this. Just want to comment it out. Yeah, so if that is the case, it also happen. I believe, I mean, the second point I mentioned it not clearly. So the thing is, if we wanted to do this, and if we do this in this way, with this, I believe we should, won't work. Yeah, seems like I'm a bit confused. Yep. I mean, probably, I mean, I will explain that one to you in the next session, please. I mean, remember me. But the only thing is, we do prefer this third one. As per the official React documentation, we do follow that one. Why? Because the binding would happen in the constructor itself, and that is the preferred way. Okay. Yeah. The React lifecycle components. Okay. So I mean, if uh, the reason I delayed this, the reason, I mean, because if I explained all this theory in the, I mean, first step as, I mean, as a first step, probably we might get confused, and because of that reason, I mean, took it as a, I mean, last one for this session. So every React lifecycle, I mean, every component, and basically, especially like class component, is having its own lifecycle because it is being inherited from the component class. So the, I mean, the reason why we are having all those methods like this dot props, this dot state, this dot set state. So these are all being defined in the component class. So basically, we can divide this component lifecycle into the following, like mounting, unmounting, updating. So the mounting basically happens when a component is being created. So when the component is being created, it is being, the first method that is being called is the constructor. So where you have to call the base class constructor by using super, and the other methods, I mean, we are, so far we have seen only the constructor and render methods, but there are other lifecycle methods as well. So the one method that we have here is get derived state from props. So I mentioned this one as well. So if you want the we cannot change the prop values. Why? Because those are read only. But if you want to change those prop values, we can create the state from those prop values, and we can make the necessary changes to that state. So that can I mean, we can do that as part of this get derived state from props method. And this render, I mean, we all know the render method is being used to render the UI, where we are having that JSX with one high level tag and with n number of child tags. And did component mount, component did mount. So this is the method that is being used um, to invoke any service calls. Suppose say I have a web page where I am displaying a list of data. I mean, as form of a table by getting that data from a service. So actually, this is a method where I have to invoke that service, embed that service call to call that service and get that data and set that data into that state so that the data will be re-rendered. Uh, so we have to be cognizant of these lifecycle methods. Otherwise, if we make any mistakes in this kind of stuff, suppose say if we make any changes to the set state, I mean, if we make any changes to the state in the render method, so whenever there is a change happens to that state, the render will be called. And when we make a change to the state in the render is going to be called infinitely, and your application is going to be crashed. So because of that reason, we have these many lifecycle methods. Okay, once the component is rendered, and when it comes to a web application, you have a number of functionalities in the UI. You may make some changes like adding new records or deleting records or updating those records. So whenever you make those changes, the component is going to be re-rendered. So as part of that re-rendering, There are a couple of methods are being invoked internally to see whether the re-rendering should happen or not. So this is the first method. As part of that, updating is going to have called is get derived state from from props. This is the same method in the previous step as well. And the other one is should component update. The best example that I can give you is, suppose say I have a web application where I have a number of elements and where I can reorder those elements. And maybe I'm displaying some summary, might be like, count, might be number of elements, maybe number of records count as a summary. But the reorder won't change that count. But when I make those reorder, I don't need to re-render that summary component. So in that scenario, I should make the necessary logic implementation. I should make the necessary implementation in the should component update. And whenever this reordering happen, I don't need to re-render that component. If by default, it is returning false, but if it is returns true, then only it will be re-rendered. If it is written false, it won't re-render, but if it is written true, it will be re-render. So we have to make the necessary, logic implementation there. The render is a normal thing. It will re-render that entire UI. And also get snapshot before update. Okay. Sometime back I mentioned, in the counter example, I showed that I'm passing that previous state parameter. So that previous state is being set here, like previous state and previous props are being set with the current state. And whenever there is a state change, and when you invoke the things, you can compare the current state with the previous state by using these previous props and previous state. Based on your application requirement. So once it is done, then you can use the component did update. So this is being used as a flag saying like, okay, the component is updated successfully. So the other one is unmounting. So the unmounting is as part of this unmounting, we have one method, component will unmount. So the unmounting is happening when the component is being removed from the UI, where we should not have any rendering methods. So why? Because all the UI components are being removed from the UI. So these are the most life cycle methods. And when it comes to functional components, we don't have this much flexibility, like initializing those things or maintaining this kind of things. So you have to manage all those things on your own. So because of that reason only, the React team introduced this life cycle and class components to make easier and maintainability of the code and make things easier and maintain. Each method is having its own responsibility, kind of purpose basically. So with all this, yeah, I wanted to have this one for this session. And in the next session, I'm going to have some demos on this life cycle, how we can make the best use of those life cycle methods while creating the components. And also there are some components like while rendering the list or while rendering some kind of tables, we have to have some kind of we have to set some keys in order to avoid that re-rendering. And also I would like to go with some sample application where I would like to demonstrate create a component and divide that one into individual components to use of those best practices. Yeah, that's all I have for now. So do you guys have any questions? Okay, yeah. If you guys, don't have any questions, yeah. Thanks for joining, and probably we would meet on 26th for continuation of this session. And also, you can share the feedback on this. Like, I created a separate email address. To keep track of the things, and I do. Even if you have any questions or have any feedback, you can share it there, and the feedback would be helpful for me to make the things better. And if you have any questions, I do reply to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.